Look closely. You are not meant to see all of it at once. That is the first thing this painting does to you. It refuses to be seen quickly. You lean in, you have to lean in, and the closer you get, the more it opens. And the more it opens, the less you understand. Beneath the grass, beneath the hazel leaves, a crowd has gathered, hundreds of them, small enough to stand on a single blade of grass. They are pressed together in the half-light, where the daylight does not quite reach. Knights in old armor, a dancer caught mid-step, an old man, bearded, watching something we cannot yet see. There are creatures here that are almost human, and creatures that are not human at all. A pale woman in a gown, a soldier, a tiny figure in a red cap, no bigger than a seed. They have come from somewhere, and they are all waiting for the same thing. In the very middle of them stands one small figure, his axe lifted high above his head. He is called the Feller. His task is simple, one clean blow, and the hazelnut at his feet will split in two. Everyone here has come to watch him do it. The axe is raised, his arms are ready, the whole world beneath the grasp holds its breath. But the blow does not fall, it never falls. Look as long as you like, you will stare longer than you meant to. The axe stays exactly where it is lifted, trembling. Forever one breath from landing. Nothing here moves, nothing is allowed to finish it. Every tiny face is frozen, eyes wide, lips tight in the instant before a blow that never comes, and slowly standing there you begin to feel it too. That tightness, that waiting, the sense that something is about to happen, and never quite happen. The man who painted this understood that feeling better than anyone alive. He had raised his own hand once, and he had not stopped it in time. His name was Richard Dadd. When he began this painting, he was already a murderer. He was already mad, and he had all the time in the world. And you, watching, feel that suspense held still as if it were waiting only for you. To understand why the blow never falls, you have to understand the hand that raised it. For most of his young life, Richard Dadd was not mad. He was gifted. One of the brightest painters of his entire generation in England. Trained at the Royal Academy, praised by his teachers. Marked out early as a young man bound for greatness. His friends adored him. He was warm, funny, quick, the kind of talent that makes everyone around him certain they are watching the beginning of a great career. Then in his 20s, he was invited on a long journey across Europe, through the Mediterranean into Egypt, down the long, blinding heat of the Nile, and somewhere in that heat, something in him quietly came loose. It did not happen all at once. That is the terrible part. There was no single moment, no thunderclap, just a slow drift, a growing sense day by day that the world was not what the others around him believed it to be. He began to feel watched. He began to believe that a god was speaking to him, Osiris, the ancient Egyptian lord of the dead. The god had chosen him. The god gave him instructions, and Richard Dadd, calm and certain, began to obey. By the time he came home, the young man his family had waved goodbye to was gone. Someone else had come back and wearing his face. He was gentler in some ways, stranger in others. He spoke of spirits and secret orders, as though he were remarking on the weather. He kept lists of people he believed were his enemies, sent by dark forces to test him. His family grew frightened. They spoke to doctors. One of them warned plainly that Richard was not responsible for his own actions and should not be left alone. No one acted on the warning in time, because by then the belief that would end everything had already taken root. Dad had become convinced that his father was not truly his father at all, that the man was an impostor, a demon, wearing a familiar face, a thing sent to deceive him. And the god, he believed, wanted it dealt with. One autumn evening he asked his father to walk with him in the countryside. His father went willingly. Why would he not? This was his son. Whatever strangeness had come over the boy, whatever the doctors murmured, A father does not believe his own child means him harm. They went out together into the dark. Only one of them came back. Dad did not run. He did not hide what he had done. To him, it was not murder at all, and it was obedience, a task completed, a demon unmasked and destroyed, exactly as the God had asked. He was calm when they found him. That calm is perhaps the most frightening thing in the whole story, a man who has done the most irreversible thing a person can do, and feels only that he has finished a duty. He was arrested, judged insane, and taken away from the world for the rest of his life. He would never be free again. More than 40 years, behind walls, first in the asylum called Bethlehem, the place the word Bedlam comes from. Later in Broadmoor, built for those the law called criminally insane. And it was there, inside that confinement, with no future and nothing but time, that Richard Dad began to paint this. Now look again at the crowd beneath the grass. Every one of those little ones is watching. Dozens of small faces turned inward, fixed on a single act about to happen. And that is not decoration. That is not whimsy. That is how the world felt to Richard Dad from the inside. Watched, surrounded, judged by things you cannot quite see, presences that gather at the edges of the daylight. And wait, and wait, and never look away. He did not have to imagine that sensation. He lived inside it, every hour of every day for the rest of his life, and he simply painted what was already there. And the more you know this, the stranger the little scene becomes. The fairies here are drawn from an old idea. Queen Mab, the tiny bringer of dreams, small enough to ride in a carriage made from a hazelnut shell. In the old telling, she slips into sleeping minds and plants desires there, longings that were never yours to begin with, small invisible hands reaching into a human head, deciding what it will want. For most people, that is a charming piece of folklore, a poet's fancy, something to smile at. For the man painting it, it was a description of his own life. Something had reached into his mind and planted a command there. Something had lifted his hand. Out in that dark field, he believed that completely, that the will which moved him had not been his own. And here in miniature, painted smaller than a fingernail, he built the exact machinery of it. The whispering, the gathering, the waiting crowd, the hand raised by a force that feels like it belongs to someone else. This is not a painting about fairies. It is a painting about being controlled. It is the most honest self-portrait he could make, a man who no longer believed his own actions were his own. Painting a world where every gesture is dictated by unseen powers. So return one last time to the axe. He spent 9 years on this single painting. 9 years bent close over a surface no larger than a book. Each blade of grass drawn one at a time, each petal, each fold of cloth on figures you can barely see, and without leaning in until your breath fogs the glass. That is not patience. That is something closer to hunger. A mind that cannot stop. A mind filling every empty space, so that no silence is left anywhere on the canvas, because silence is where the thoughts get in. And in all that vast, obsessive labor, there is one single thing he refused to finish. The blow. He built an entire universe around one action, the masterstroke, the clean cut that gives the painting its name, and then he froze it. One breath before it lands, and he held it there, unfinished, for 9 long years. Think about what that means. Coming from him. This was a man who had already delivered one irreversible stroke. Out in the dark, he had raised his hand, and that time it fell, and nothing after it could ever be undone. There was no taking it back, no returning to the half-second before, when the world was still whole. So here, in the one world, he could still control completely. He did the only thing left to him. He raised the blow again, and this time he held it. Forever suspended, forever about to happen, forever not yet done. You can feel him there, standing at the very edge of it, wanting to stay in that half-second before, where the thing is still only possible, still only coming, still not yet real, still for one endless moment. Something he could choose not to do. The axe glints, caught in a light that never moves. And it waits. For over 100 years, almost no one understood what they were looking at. The painting was handed to a hospital official as a gift, then passed quietly from one owner to the next. A curiosity, an oddity made by a madman. Today it hangs in a gallery in London. People stop in front of it, and they lean in close because you have to, and they smile at the tiny fairies and the pretty crowded grass. Most of them walk away never knowing that they have just looked directly into a human mind at the exact moment it broken and stayed broken, and went on painting anyway, for the rest of a life spent behind walls. And here is the part that should stay with you, after the fairies fade. We all carry a stroke we cannot take back. A word said in anger, a door closed for the last time. A moment we would give anything to return to the half-second before, when it was still only about to happen. Richard Dad could not undo his. He could not confess it in any way the world would understand, so he did the only thing his hands still knew how to do. He painted the blow, raised and ready, and he made certain this time that it would never fall. Look closely, it is still up there now, waiting, and some part of you already knows exactly what it feels like to hold a single moment still, forever, because you cannot bear to let it finish.